Welcome back, everyone, to the Next Game, New Game podcast. It's been about a month since we've spoken last, since the end of the regular season, end of the Super Bowl, which the Eagles won, by the way. Sometimes I still have to pinch myself saying that. Back at Trillo, back here with you, along with Alex Kozora. No Ian or Tyler. Hopefully we'll have them back for the draft show later on this spring. Alex, been a while since we've chatted. What's going on?
You got to bring up the Eagles Super Bowl again. That's not going to stop for a while, is it?
No. Yeah, not really. I think I've rewatched the game probably about 5 times already, and other highlights is about a zillion other times. I've worn my shirt pretty much every time I've gone out, and no other shirts. So yeah, that's about how it's been. But it's nice though.
Yeah, hey, enjoy it.
Absolutely. So last time we talked, Alex, was the end of the season. Now we're back here to recap free agency, and it's been quite a lot that's happened since the last time we spoke. So we're going to get into that, and then towards the end of the show, we'll start looking ahead towards the 2018 NFL Draft from Dallas. And, of course, we'll have our full draft show coming up, too, later on in the spring, too. So let's get into it, Alex. We'll start with the Super Bowl champion Eagles as they make a lot of moves right off the bat, winning the Super Bowl. And most notably occurring yesterday is the Eagles re-signed Nigel Bradham to a 5-year deal with $40 million, which I got to be honest, Alex, I did not see coming whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way the Eagles' cap space was, but they were able to do that because they restructured the contracts of Zach Ertz and Lane Johnson. They traded Torrey Smith away. That saved another $5 million. We'll get into that one too. And they were able to. Brent Selleck got cut too. So it was Howie again working his magic with the cap. And this is what I like about the Nigel Bradham deal. Not only do you get a key guy from last year's defense back, but the way they structured the contract is the 2018 base is fully guaranteed, which is $8 million, and then only $2 million of the 2019 base salary is guaranteed. And the Eagles, on the 5th day of the beginning of next league year in 2019, they can cut them if they foresee anything that forces them to do that. So I think that was just a great contract, and so far so good, Alex, when you look at the Eagles' overall perspective so far at the start of the offseason.
Yeah, you guys have been making moves. Howie Roseman was doing a fantastic job. I love the aggressiveness off the Super Bowl, not going to rest on your laurels. To front load the Bradham contract, not a lot of teams can afford the ability to front load like that, but that was a big key piece. I'm with you. I thought he was gone. I knew his market was going to be strong. I'm sure he had offers to go elsewhere, but when you play with a great team, you can get some of those guys back that might be tempted to go elsewhere, might have been able to make a little bit more money elsewhere. You got Corey Smith, right, the linebacker?
Right. Corey Nelson from the Broncos was a 1-year deal. Plus, you had the Bennett trade. We'll talk about that in particular in a sec. But I really love the Corey Nelson signing because, one, if you weren't able to bring back Bradham, then he's a guy that was capable, I think, of starting, though he was still looking for that being in Denver for so many years. He's got a ring. He was on the Super Bowl 50 winning team in Denver. And he's a good special teams player. That's how he broke himself in. And we've seen how well that's really benefited the Eagles with guys like Trey Burton, etc. So I thought that was a great signing, and now that you've re-signed Bradham back, he gives you a tremendous amount of depth, which you were lacking at linebacker, plus you still have the draft to go. So I really love that signing when you go to Corey Nelson, and now you go to the Michael Bennett trade, Alex, and I was curious about it at first just because of all of his off-the-field antics and the way how outspoken he's been about the social justice issues and things like that, but when it comes to it all, the Eagles don't really have to worry about a majority of his contract. They didn't give up a whole lot. They only gave up a 5th-round pick, and they also got a 7th-round pick in return. And is obviously going to be a depth guy based on all the other pieces that you have on the defensive line, which was already probably your top strength of the team. And you had Alohi Nata, who was just signed yesterday to a 1-year contract. I think the Eagles' defense, Alex, arguably could be better than last year's, and we haven't even addressed the draft yet.
Right, it's looking that way. Bennett's going to play stuff back control. That could be an option. Excuse me. With Vinny Curry's future, you can probably speak to that better than I can. But his future, you get Nada to replace Bo Allen, who goes to Tampa Bay. Your defensive line stacked. Trying to stop Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Bennett, Nada, Jernigan. Right, Jernigan's still there, correct?
Yep, Jernigan's still going to be there. Former teammate at Nada, so they joined up, and that's going to be fun to watch.
That's a scary front four.
Yeah, especially against the run. This was a mind-blowing stat to me that was tweeted out by Ruben Frank of NBC Sports Philly when the Eagles first signed Nada. When Nada's first 5 games before he got hurt and he had the bicep injury, which he mentioned he's fully recovered from, he's going to be ready to go for the start of OTAs and everything, is they only allowed, I think it was 79 yards per game rushing. And then the rest of the season, the Lions were getting up over 120 yards rushing. So that just tells you how much of a value he's going to be coming off the bench in the depth role against the run. And then obviously we know we can do against the pass. And you bring in a guy like Michael Bennett, who you mentioned, Alex, is going to be versatile. He'll play, especially when you go into those sub packages, a guy that can rush the passer from inside. You can put him outside too. So the Eagles' defensive line is going to be really ferocious once again next year, if not better. Plus you have the depth. You're starting to add now a linebacker. Really is just tremendous going up here for the Eagles.
Yeah. Some stuff on offense to address. You lose Trey Burton to, I think he went to Chicago.
Right, yeah. He signed the 4-year, $32 million deal with Chicago, right? Of course, they cut Brent Selleck.
Yeah, I mean, still have Zach Ertz, but, you can look to address tight end. Tight end's a good group in the draft, though.
I agree.
So I think you can get, a mid-roundish kind of guy, whether that's a Fumagalli from Wisconsin, a Hayden Hurst from South Carolina, maybe something like that. But, not a lot of holes on this roster right now, which usually after Super Bowl, guys go elsewhere. They want to get their money. They got a lot of interest. He lost a couple pieces, but it's a group that's intact.
And I think the big reason why, Alex, because you saw this as a theme develop in some of the press conferences yesterday for Nigel Bradham and some of the other Eagles free agents that were signed, is the culture. And that's something that, to me, when you look back at the Michael Bennett trade, I was a little bit worried about it at first, how it would affect the locker room, but the Eagles' culture and what Doug Peterson has developed with some of those character guys and some of those veterans like Malcolm Jenkins, Carson Wentz, etc., in that locker room, I think is really hard to break up at this point. Of course, success obviously bleeds a lot into that, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, he hits the nail on the head. Everyone wants to play for Doug Peterson. They love playing for him, so guys are going to re-sign, even if it's, a chance to take less money or lesser role or whatever the case is. But, yeah, and you could still possibly move Nick Foles. I know the team isn't super keen on that. They want to get good value for him, but, you have the draft. You have a lot of picks. You have a lot of options. Michael Kendricks could be a possible trade. Now, you're unlikely to get much for him, but that's just another pick that you could add, whether that's a 5th, 6th, 7th rounder. A lot of moves on the board for a team that doesn't have a whole lot of holes. I mean, that's a good place to be.
Right, yeah. It's interesting you mentioned Kendricks and Foles. Now, with Foles, real quick, I'll just speak to that. I don't think he's going anywhere unless it's during the summer because at this point, obviously, the teams that were quarterback needy already got their quarterbacks in free agency and or going to draft somebody and putting themselves in position to do so like the Bills have done and trading up into the top 10. And so it's going to come down to injuries that might or might not happen during training camp and somebody being desperate to give the Eagles what they're looking for, which is obviously a first-round pick or better after you saw that report from Pro Football Talk saying an AFC team or two offered a second-round pick and the Eagles basically just shut the door on him immediately. So I like that. That's exactly the approach that the Eagles should have because, yes, it looks as though Carson Wentz is going to be ready to go for week 1. The preseason still looks a little iffy, but even so, you still have that security blanket just in case if there's any setback or maybe something else happens with Wentz trying to get back from the torn ACL. So the Eagles are good there. And then as far as Michael Kendricks is concerned, I don't think there's really a whole lot out there. There's never really been a whole lot out there. So I think he's going to one of three things, I guess. The Eagles are going to be stuck with him, which I'm more than fine with because he showed he can be productive last year. He turned it around. It'll be a draft day trade or, again, a summer trade type deal if injuries occur.
Do you think they just outright cut him?
I don't know that for sure. I don't know what his salary cap is.
Well, he's got a big base salary. I think it's like $5.8 million. The dead money is going to be less than that. I don't know exactly what the savings would be. They'll save by cutting.
Yeah, if they save, I think you're right. I think they save. I want to say $3 or $4 million now that I remember. So
his contract's up next year, 2019.
Correct. Yes, that is correct. So. I guess I wouldn't be surprising either if they outright cut him. I wouldn't be a total fan of the move just because it's a guy that you're still in good shape now cap-wise because of Howie Roseman being able to be the whiz that he is and do that. But if you can get value for him and trade him to go ahead, and then I would be okay in doing that because you have a guy in Corey Nelson that can just step right in.
If the season started today, is Kendrick starting? You got Bradham?
I'm going to say yes for now, but it's going to be something to watch because Corey Nelson was flat out asked yesterday, where does this coaching staff want you to compete at? And he said, well, linebacker. That's exactly where Michael Kendricks plays. So that raised some eyebrows immediately among the Eagles media brass, so which is curious. You'd think that the Eagles are still trying to find a way to trade him. But if it comes down to it, then there's going to be a lot of competition there.
Yeah, I mean, if he's starting, then you can keep him. But if he's going to be in that backup role, that money's too much to be a backup.
Right. Yeah. No question about that. Yeah. So that's going to be the number one thing to look out for, I think. Minus, of course, Carson Wentz coming back from the torn ACL. So Alex, we'll go to the Steelers now, which is really not a whole lot to talk about. Of course, they did let go William Gay. Obviously, you keep seeing Ryan Shazier trying to come back from his spinal injury. Of course, not expected to play this season coming up here. It looked like they had a couple of chances at some inside linebackers, and that kind of really didn't see much moves there. I know the Steelers don't typically like to throw out money at free agency. Of course, they also brought back Le'Veon Bell, or they will be once he actually signs the franchise tag once again. So very quiet on the west end of the state, Alex.
It is. You're making the moves for the whole state, apparently, Catrilla. But that's no surprise in Pittsburgh. I was hoping that they could do a little action at the inside linebacker spot. Colbert said it's something that they might look at in free agency prior to this thing starting. He said the draft class was a little thin inside. Maybe we think they were going to make a move. But the inside linebacker market is really hot. Guys getting a lot more than I thought. That's Anthony Hitchens getting $9 million.
Right.
Mario Davis, Zach Brown getting $7 to $8 million. Even to hear Whitehead getting around $5, Todd Davis getting $5, going back to Denver. So, it's pretty pricey there. And, I said, replacing Shazier is going to be so tough because you're trying to replace that MAC linebacker spot, a guy that's going to play 100% of snaps in all situations guy, who's going to have to run with tight ends, run with receivers, line up everywhere, blitz, covers, stop the run. I mean, you got to have a guy that excels everywhere, and there's so few guys in the league that can do that. So that makes the fit tough, but been really quiet. Steelers have really been working on just creating cap space after Bell's franchise tag, restructuring a ton of deals, which is a thing you just have to do. With Bell, I'm no surprised. The tag was obvious. He was not going to go anywhere. They're not going to rescind the tag for anyone who thinks that. That's just silly. But I still don't think a long-term deal is going to get done. I think Bell's firm in his number. I know the Steelers have been continuing to come up and try to get closer to that number, but it hasn't happened. I don't see anything that's changed significantly from this year compared to last year that's going to make Bell even and do a deal. So I believe this is going to be Bell's final year in Pittsburgh, and this time next year he'll be with a new team.
Yeah, I totally am with you there. You should mention he's staying right where he is. The Steelers aren't staying where they are. They're just you've been at a complete stalemate really for the last 2-3 years. So yeah, I definitely think this is going to be his last year. Could be even Big Ben's last year, which is curious that I know this has always been the way the Steelers have been in terms of not throwing out money at people, but I thought they might have been a little bit more aggressive than usual, knowing that the time's kind of running out on both Bell and Big Ben. Now, what I am curious about is, Alex, is how the Steelers are going to handle the safety free agency class, because nobody has touched them at all, and you still have some somewhat notable names out there that you could bring in.
Yeah, I think that's the direction this team has to look at now. I thought first inside linebacker, but you're right. The inside linebacker market is basically gone right now. Safety hasn't been touched. You have Tyrann Mathieu, got released by the Cardinals. Trey Boston, Kenny Vaccaro, Morgan Burnett. There are some names out there, but again, it's range. Obviously, someone like Tyrann Mathieu is going to cost probably at minimum $7-8 million a year.
And he's already got about 7-8 teams interested in him already, and not the Steelers in that grouop.
Right, so I think it's pretty unlikely that's going to happen. Could you go with the Trey Boston? I haven't heard his name really connected to anybody in free agency. He was in, Steelers went after him last year. He ended up signing elsewhere. Had a couple teams interested, went to the LA Chargers. That'd be a good fit. Yeah, you're right. I think that you have to make a move. I'm a little surprised they haven't been more aggressive, but it's always hard to say what's going on behind the scenes. And while, we don't know exactly about Ben's future, no one can say for certain, he's told the team he wants to play for at least 3 more years. So I don't think we're in this year-to-year cycle with Ben anymore like we were a year ago. I think you have a good idea of what Ben's future is, so that gives you a little bit more time, a little bit more leeway, and not that panic, I guess you could say, we have to make a move right this instant.
Right, and so we'll stay inside the AFC North, Alex, and I definitely want to get to Kirk Cousins signing with the Vikings. So that's the biggest one we've seen so far in free agency. But since we're talking about the Steelers and where they stand as far as their time clicking as far as trying to win right now, you look at the Browns and what they've done. They've been making probably more moves than what the Eagles have made, and totally revamping that offense. You bring in Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, which I think they spent a little too much on, but at least he's the bridge gap guy. They'll be in prime position to draft somebody. Then they bring in Carlos Hyde, which I also thought was very interesting at running back. Of course, they make the trade for Jarvis Landry. What do you think of the Browns right now, Alex?
No, I think they're doing a good job. Now, I haven't agreed with every single move, but you have to appreciate John Dorsey coming in with draft capital and a lot of cap space, and just making moves, shaking up the roster. Landry's going to be a really productive guy in the slot. Tyrod Taylor's going to be a bridge guy. I agree. Giving up a third was surprising, but
too much for him. Too much for a bridge gap guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think he's a good quarterback. I know we differ a little bit on that. And if you want to be, competitive, you got to have something at quarterback, and he's going to take care of the football at a pretty high level. The offensive line, they address it partly with Chris Hubbard, who came over from Pittsburgh, who's going to play right tackle for him there. And now they got to figure out the left tackle spot now that Joe Thomas has retired. So, they have Sean Coleman. They said he might play there. He's not going to be the answer. They're going to have to draft for that. Unfortunately, this year's draft class at tackle is really poor. There's a couple guys, Connor Williams in Texas. We saw what happened with Orlando Brown and how bad his combine was. Not a lot of options there, so that's going to be a big key. But, for the most part, they're making moves. They're getting some help on defense. Demarius Randall. They trade away Danny Shelton. Now, I like Danny Shelton, but they have a guy most people haven't heard of, and Larry Ogunjobi from Charlotte last year, who did a great job stuffing the run. He's going to probably be the replacement there. So they're just getting some extra draft picks, making some moves. I know we kind of say it every year, but I think the Browns have done a really good job, and they're going to be an obvious statement, but they're going to be a lot more competitive in 2018.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, when you're 0-16, you can go anyway but up. Right. But I agree. I think they can be around the 5-6 win mark as of right now at this point of the offseason. But I'm curious to know your viewpoint, Alex. At this point, about a month and a half away from the draft, 1-4 for Cleveland. Are they taking Barkley at 1? Are they going quarterback at 1 and then running and somewhere else running back or wherever at 4? How do you see that right now?
I'm like 95% confident they're going to go quarterback at 1. Who? I don't know. People will say different things. It might end up being Sam Darnold. We'll see what happens. But you have to get your guy at 1. You can't bank on him being there at 4, because if anyone's trading up at 2 or 3, it's to go get a quarterback. And yeah, there are several good quarterbacks in this year's class, but they're not going to have every guy evaluated as a franchise guy. You probably have 1, maybe 2 guys that you say, in all sincerity, that this is a franchise guy. This is a guy we have rated incredibly high, and this is a guy that can turn the whole Cleveland Browns around. It's not going to be 4 or 5 guys with that label there. So you have to get that guy at 1. As good as Saquon Barkley is, and he's fantastic, he's not going to be the guy that turns the franchise around. If you get him at a 4, that's great. If he's not there, if he goes 2 or 3, that's fine too. You can go get a Denzel Ward or a Minkah Fitzpatrick, Derwin James. You can get someone else. But you have to get your quarterback at 1, and I expect this team to do that.
Now this is where we defer slightly. Now let me start by saying this: if Cleveland, I've even said this before when the Eagles drafted Carson Wentz. If you're a team like the Browns and you have a guy that you think is your franchise guy, then yes, I agree. Get him at 1, especially with other teams being as aggressive as they are for quarterbacks, like the Bills, for example, who are now traded into the top 5. But from my perspective, I don't think any of these quarterbacks are worth the top pick, even top 5, top 10. So therefore, I know you just signed Carlos Hyde, which I thought was interesting, and why I still think the Cleveland's going to take a quarterback at 1. I think you still got to take Barkley just because you still have. When you have so many things wrong with you like the Browns are at this point, even though they have upgraded in some areas, you got to take the best play in the draft, which is Saquon Barkley. He's going to equally make your offense as good as it will be. Whoever you have a quarterback is going to make them better as well, because I think he's that much of a special talent. And then you take a quarterback at 4. That's how I would do it.
Why take him at 4 and not 1 if you don't think any of these guys are franchise guys, top 5 guys?
Because that's the way the board's going to dictate is everyone's going to take a quarterback regardless. So you're still going to have to take a quarterback there, even though you may not think that they're top guys. But those other guys where I think that I would grade them. I don't know where the Browns are grading them. They're not going to be there at that point. That's just the way that the board's going to dictate itself, I think. So that's why I think they have to go running back 1 and get Barkley at 1 and then take the quarterback at 4, just because nobody in that class, in that top 5, 6 tier group's going to be there, when they're picking again in the second round.
Right, but why not take him at 1 if you're not going to, because you might not get your guy at 4 then. If you want, Sam Darnold, he might be gone at 2 or 3 or 1, or not at 1, but 2 or 3 if you don't take him at 1.
I just think Barkley's a better talent. And when you have a chance, when you're a franchise like the Browns that's been starving just to flat out win for so long, you can't miss out on franchise-changing players, and yes, obviously quarterbacks, obviously top tier important. But when you have a guy like Barkley on the board, I don't think you can pass that up.
If you're comfortable with taking the guy at 4, you're probably comfortable taking the guy at 1 if he's a quarterback and you believe he's a franchise guy that can turn things around. And you're not going to pass up on that guy. You're not going to, cross your fingers and hope no one else takes your guy because someone probably will. I think you can get. Isn't it possible you get Barkley at 4?
I don't know. I think it could be a little bit possible, but I don't give that really great odds just because I think the Giants keeping Eli to me tells me that I don't know what they're thinking at quarterback right now, and I think they could really take him at 2. And then third right now is, remind me,
remember off the top of my head, Denver's at 5.
I think Indy's at 3.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So they're in need of a running back. They could take Barkley, especially, with them trying to somehow bring back Andrew Luck. So
yeah, he could definitely go. I mean, there's a good chance of that. But I think there's also a good chance the quarterback you want is going to be gone. Well, the quarterback's more important.
Yes.
Let's forget about our evaluation. The Browns probably view at least one of these quarterbacks as a guy they really like and believe they can turn the franchise around. Is that fair to say?
I would probably say that, yes.
Okay. So by that logic, if you have that one guy, there's probably not 3 of them.
Then yes, take him at 1.
All right. Well, then what are we talking about here?
And that's why I proceeded when saying that if they have a guy that they know, yes, you got to take him at 1. I'm just saying from my perspective here, I don't think any of these guys are worth the first overall pick. I think that's Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, but then you're advocating taking a quarterback at 4. So it's like, you're talking out of both sides here. You're saying these guys aren't franchise, they're not top 5 picks, but let's take him at 4.
That's because you're only doing that, at least in my perspective, because that's the way the board's going to dictate it. Because
but why not take another position?
You have the top 5, 6 tier guys, and they're all going to go, as we both have agreed, that they're going to go quickly in the first round. So if you wait for the second round to take a quarterback, you might as well not take a quarterback at all because it's not going to be anywhere close to what.
If you don't view him as a franchise guy, why would you take him at 4? Just because you're supposed to?
It's because they're worthy of where you may have them lower graded, even though it's a little bit of a stretch, but they're just not going to be there. It's the way the board's going to dictate itself.
No, I understand, but if you're not a top 5 guy, then why take him in the top 5?
That's a fair point. I get it, but I'm just saying. But that's why I'm also saying too, where I think the last couple of seasons you're seeing teams way over evaluate some of these quarterbacks here and overestimate some of these quarterbacks. I think in these last couple of seasons. Now, obviously, Jared Goff, meaning that I think that they're getting picked at over the overvalue of what they're actually worth, in my opinion. Like, I don't think guys like Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, I think they're first round picks, but they're not top 5 picks. I think they're mid to late first round picks. The year before that, all the quarterbacks that were taken, Deshaun Kaiser, etc., they were all up, taken way higher than I would have personally taken them and the grades that I have given them. I just think the last couple of years, you have teams that are just so desperate to get a quarterback that I think they're forgetting of how to actually evaluate them and grade them and just getting, just because they're a quarterback and they're, these are the top 2 guys, even though they're, may not be good as other classes, I just have to get them.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
There's too many knee-jerk reactions to getting quarterbacks, I think, this last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point, but I think it's kind of gone the other way. I think, 5-6 years ago, we saw guys get reached for way too much. I think it's kind of just, tempered down a little bit. I don't have any specific examples, but, we saw guys like Ryan Nassib and guys go super high several years ago that just weren't worth it at all. And, we've seen guys like Paxton Lynch fall, that expected to be a real high guy, kind of went, back end of the first round. So, I don't know, I think teams have kind of reversed course on that and leveled out a bit. I'm just saying, regardless of our perspective, the Browns are going to have a guy they really like, a quarterback that can fix everything, and you take that guy, and because you're not going to roll the dice on trying to get him at 4. And then if you don't like a quarterback, if you want Barkley at 1, means you don't like any of these quarterbacks enough, then just trade out of 4 and get some more picks. If you don't
that's a fair enough point too. Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they should. I think you go quarterback at 1 and 4. If you get Barkley, you run to the podium. If not, you can go defense or maybe again trade back 5-6 spots, get another pick, and adjust some more holes.
Right. I think we'll definitely leave it at that as far as the Browns there at number 4. But that'll be definitely fun to watch. No doubt about that. All right, so now let's get to Kirk Cousins, Alex. He signs the 3-year, $84 million deal that's fully guaranteed, most amount of guaranteed money ever in the NFL. And, aside from the draft, again, this kind of piggybacks off my point of you see too many teams that are quarterback needy make these knee-jerk reactions, and you get this kind of an outrageous contract for Kirk Cousins. Now, clearly he's the best quarterback on the market, but let's face it, he's not any Joe Montana either. And he gets $84 million guaranteed.
Well, you know the game. Quarterbacks.
I get it. I know the game, but I'm just saying these guys aren't worth it. Is what I'm saying. I know the game. Yeah, it had to be done if you're Minnesota because it was a hot market for Kirk Cousins. But what I'm saying is when you put his resume and everything together, he's not worth $84 million.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure Minnesota knows that too. Kirk Cousins might know it too. Again, that's the way it's working. I think it's awesome. You call it outrageous. I think it's an awesome contract. I'm so happy to see him get that done, and I hope that sets a major precedent in the NFL where guys get guaranteed money because you get so many of these big bloated contracts and they look fantastic, but you get into the nitty gritty and the guaranteed money's a fraction of the overall net worth of the contract. They're always in favor of the team. Team gets to cut guys whenever they want. Guys don't end up seeing half that money. And I think that this is going to start changing the tide of guys going in with shorter deals but more guaranteed money, which is fantastic because a 5-year deal means nothing. You're almost year to year for called but maybe 10, 15 guys in the NFL. I'm maybe exaggerating a little bit, but you get my point. So I think it's great. I want players to get their money. I love that Cousins got, $84 million guaranteed. That's fantastic. And I hope that, more elite guys are going to, command the same, both in the free agent market and also when they look to re-sign with their own teams.
Oh, hey, I totally agree, and I'm with you. It's a fair point of where I think the players are smart in doing so because you just look at Nigel Bradham's contract, for example, we just talked about a few minutes ago, where you see the caveat in that. You look at it right off the bat, 5-year, $40 million. Yeah, it's a great contract, but the Eagles can only really pay him $10 million after the first year. So I think it's a great thing to point out. And Kirk Cousins deserves to get that money after the way he's been harassed and picked and gone back and forth with the Redskins the last couple of years.
Yeah, just for that alone.
Exactly. Anybody alone dealing with Dan Snyder for the last 3 years and just erroneous negotiation contracts definitely deserves that amount of money. But now the pressure's on him, Alex, and I thought Louis Riddick brought an interesting point the other day on ESPN where how that locker room, that they know they're bound to win right now, and they were a game away from getting to the Super Bowl last year in their home stadium before getting blasted by the Eagles, how they're going to respond to a guy that they bring in for all this guaranteed money when they had the much successes they had last year with a guy like Case Keenum. I thought that was a very interesting perspective. Now, I think they're going to respond to him and be around him just because they know they can win right now, but I thought that's an interesting idea to keep an eye on as they go through the season.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a good answer for that. Louis Riddick's a really smart guy, but overall I think it's a good move as an upgrade at the position. You're so close to winning a Super Bowl, you got to go, into the deep end and go for it.
Definitely, and so we'll go around the rest of the NFL now. I'm going to go to the Jets real quick, Alex, because you bring in both Josh McCown, who did a nice job for them last year. That's probably the best I've ever seen him looked in his entire career. But then you still sign Teddy Bridgewater. Now, I get they're 2 one-year deals, but I just really don't get the direction the Jets are going in at quarterback right now because you're bringing 2 veterans who are capable of being stopgap guys, and you're still in position to probably draft somebody. So I don't really get what the Jets are doing right now at quarterback.
Yeah, I'm not totally clear on it either, but like you said, they're 1-year deals. You can compete in camp. You obviously have Bridgewater's history, McCown's history. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but we'll figure it out, I guess. And
then finally, Alex, based on all the moves we've seen so far, what else kind of caught your eye through the first part of free agency?
It's just so hard to try to keep up. Arizona's still got to find a quarterback. I don't know. I don't know what the direction I want to go in. The Giants have made some aggressive moves. What do you think, Achilla?
I got to go Tennessee, New Orleans, being the most aggressive so far. What New Orleans has done defensively to upgrade themselves, and they're probably still not interested in bringing in Ndamukong Suh. Tennessee, what they've done on both sides of the ball, especially bringing in Malcolm Butler on defense. So that's going to be real interesting. And the Bears, I think, have done a nice job too. That NFC North, I don't know what direction you're going right now because the Bears are going to be more a playoff contender. You got the Packers now coming back with Aaron Rodgers, and they bring in Mo Wilkerson and Jimmy Graham. The NFC, to me, was already lethal, Alex, but next year there is literally zero room for any NFC team that you especially your teams like the Eagles and the Vikings that are looking to contend right now. They're a zero era because the NFC is probably be as best as I've ever seen it.
Yep, and last thing, because I know I got to go, but just came across from Adam Schefter. Vontaze Burfict facing a 4-game suspension for violating the NFL's PED policies.
Oh, geez, what a shock.
Another suspension for Vontaze Burfict.
What a shock.
Their captain, Bengals captain, by the way.
Yeah, I think that just says it all in itself. So, well, Alex, it's been fun to get back with you this week here to recap what we've seen so far in free agency. Hopefully, we might do something here before the draft, but if not, we'll definitely be gearing up for our annual draft show, which is always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can't wait, man.
All right, sounds good. Make sure you can follow the podcast on Twitter at NG_NFL. Alex is on Twitter at Alex_Kozora, and I am on Twitter at MCatrillo. So that's going to do it for this free agency edition of the Next Game New Game podcast. For Alex Kozora, I'm Matt Catrillo. We'll talk to you soon here on the Next Game New Game podcast.